transferred to their den of thieves and the Bank of International Settlements. Congress may take back the constitutional power over the monetary gold of the people of the United States, will, like the sons of the people, be buried in a foreign field. Mr. Chairman, if you, as one of the parties in power, are thinking of remaking the world so that the old America we knew and loved is to be no more, if you are one of those who is countenancing the placing of this country under the British Crown and the pooling of all American resources, which are with those of England and Soviet Russia, and if you are one of those whom the title of nobility appears to be more desirable than plain citizenship in the republic founded by George Washington, I trust that you will someday descend from the speaker's chair and let us know the reasons for your preference. And if, on the other hand, you are not one of those words depict, I trust that you will come down to the floor and tell us how constitutional government is to be maintained in this country if the plurocratic managers of the Democratic Party continue their efforts to destroy it. You, if any, should be able to give the people of the United States an answer to this question. And under this administration, the result of the American Revolution has been reversed. The United States has become an economic vassal of Great Britain, the once proud Republic of the United States, with its great Charter of Human Freedoms, the Declaration of Independence, and its written Constitution, which had kept it free and independent for over 140 years, and its flag, first made by the hands of Betsy Ross in Philadelphia, and its national anthem, born within each earshot of the British guns that shelled Fort McHenry, all these, like the American dollar, were brought down from their high estate. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Mr. Chairman, we know very well that you cannot see that the flag there as it used to be. Others started very cautiously to pull it down. But it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt in his unlawful and unconstitutional assumption of dictatorial powers who finally lowered it and tore it from its standard. Now that the gold bill is explained and the reader knows why he turned in his gold and what became of it, what about the soldier's bonus we used to hear so much about? Have our congressmen forgotten the boys that made the world safe for democracy, or was it safe for money changers? We as a nation are plagued by law to pay them their bonus or compensation certificates in 1945, and they surely need it now if they ever will. Will the reader please remember that President Lincoln issued $60 million in full legal tender, greenbacks, and paid his soldiers? Would the reader like some real authority on this subject? Then listen to Robert H. Hempel, financial authority and editorial writer on financial matters in the Hearst papers, and a really profound student on such matters. And writings in the Hearst papers of March the 17th, 1934, Mr. Hempel has the following to say, quote unquote, sound money. During the month of February 1934, we imported 371,347,100,000 in gold. We paid for it with quote unquote fiat money, treasury notes of the United States, printing press money, paper money, greenbacks, irredeemable in gold, silver, or any specific metal, lawful money of the United States, fiat money in every sense of the word. We have now no other kind of currency. It is the best, or is it the best money in the world? Despite the unlimited quantity offered in exchange for gold and the threat inherent in our huge secret stabilization fund, It has been so far almost impossible to prevent our fiat money from commanding a constant premium over its theoretical par in exchange for the most prized possession of European nations, their gold. It is very important to remember this. We are rapidly approaching the situation where the government must issue additional currency. It will very soon be the only move remaining. It should have been the first step in the recovery program. Immediately upon a revival of demand that the government increase the supply of currency, we shall again be subject to a barrage of skillfully designed and cunningly calculated propaganda by means of which a small group of international bankers have been able for 2 centuries to frighten the people of the civilized world and would against issuing their own good money in sufficient quantities to carry on their necessary commerce. By this simple but amazingly successful device, these money changers, parasites in the busy world intent on creating and exchanging wealth, have been able to preserve for their private and exclusive right the monopoly of manufacturing an inferior substitute for the money which they have hypnotized civilized nations into using because of their pressing need to exchange goods for services. And we shall never recover our credit. Even if it were obtainable, it is uncertain, unreliable, does not expand in accordance with demand, and contracts unexpectedly and for causes unrelated to the needs of commerce and industry. Demand deposits cannot be loaned to commerce and industry. Many bankers have known this for a long time. It required this depression and the complete freezing of the whole banking system to teach the rest, but with very few exceptions, they have all learned. And I am convinced that the NRA experiment is running into a jam, and it has developed into a wholly different doctrine than the original conception. And having failed to stipulate recovery, the present idea is to distribute the pre- or non-existing profits from one group to another. And under any system of reasoning, the purchasing power, however, will remain the same. And instead of providing for expansion, which means the creation and exchange of more wealth, its underlying philosophy is the creation and exchange of less wealth. It is difficult to believe adult human beings at any stage in its development of civilization could be led into serious consideration of a system founded on such an absurd doctrine. We need in circulation $250 per capita in permanent, uncontractable currency, deposited in depositories and payable on demand to sustain a standard of living to which we had arrived in 1927 to 1929. To pay the then prevailing prices, wages, and cost, to produce incomes and to restore the property values of that period. It makes no difference how this currency is put into circulation. We all producers, and we all likewise, all consumers, each one of us buys from all of the others. If 1,000 million of new currency is thrown into circulation, anywhere in the system, it becomes almost immediately distributed throughout the nation. It increases the transaction of the nation, an average of 36,000 million per year, and because we all buy the same things in the same order of preference, our business increases in the normal manner. First, the necessities of life, next, the necessary luxuries, and lastly, capital goods. And we are all so anxious to produce and trade our products, our goods, and our services with our neighbors that we will accept almost any kind of money which we have a fair chance of off-passing on for other things that we want. And in our present situation, the issue of additional currency is the only way out. Is there any good reason that the Congress cannot or should not do this now? or pass a bill to remonetize silver? Is there any reason why that should not be done either? Yes, dear reader, there is. And that reason is the control of your whole country by the foreign money changers through the Federal Reserve System of banks that have the power to issue unlimited amounts of their own greenbacks redeemable by their government, and to withhold loans and call loans and inflate and deflate the currency and the country at their own pleasure and for their own profit. How long, O God, will the American people stand for such a condition, when all they need is a safe, sane, reasonable plan for economic security and quote-unquote united action to put into operation? And after this country was forced into bankruptcy, financial slavery, war was declared on the American people. This country has been destroyed from within, first by taking over the finances, and then by taking over and possessing the United States government. And the presidency was taken over when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected. And through him, the banks were able to declare war on the American people and to enslave them through the social programs that were enacted by Congress. And Congress went along to get along. And the majority of these men were lawyers, and they sold out the American people. And because voting is a privilege and not a right, and proves your membership in the metaverse, had the legal right, but not the moral right, to enact legislation that made every American that voted for that Congress an alien enemy, which is a legal term which simply means that you have been declared an enemy of the United States and the bankers because the citizens of 1933 voted on the government officials that took this action, and because the association, they were responsible. However, according to the law of the children of these American alien enemies, have the right to remain alien enemies, or could elect to no longer be an alien enemy. To remain an alien enemy means to continue receiving benefits given by the government. To see what these benefits are, we read A Country Defeated in Victory, Part 1. To discontinue being an alien enemy means to stop taking the government's benefits. Now, will this rejection of the benefits stop the government from forcing you to be a slave? This is doubtful, because the men that created the conditions of your slavery still wish you to be a slave. And their purpose is to establish a one-world government. And these men, those who replace them, are still in power and control every aspect of your life. And they will not give up a slave just because the slave no longer wishes to be a slave. So what is the purpose of resisting your enslavement? Should we do as Congress did and go along to get along? And let me ask you this. Did our anti-federalist forefathers give up or give in for financial comfort? No. If you believe in God Almighty and have received a redemption, or the redemptive blood of Jesus Christ, His Son, and you also believe that the Bible is the living Word of God Almighty, you also must know that this is not possible to serve two masters. Either you serve God Almighty or man, Jesus, in the book of Revelation 20:4. Those who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and not received the mark upon their forehead and upon their hand, and they came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. And the reward for rejecting Babylon, the mark of the beast, is to reign with Jesus Christ for 1,000 years. So if you choose to be an alien enemy, be aware that there are consequences to your actions. The legal term, quote-unquote, alien enemies, is defined in the following pages. And the following is a quote from the Congressman James Beck. And I think all the damnable heresies that have ever been suggested in connection with the Constitution, the doctrine of emergency, is the worst. And it means that when Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. This means it's death. But the Constitution of the United States, as a restraining influence in keeping the federal government within its carefully prescribed channels of power, is moribund, if not dead. And we are witnessing its death agonies. For when this bill becomes a law, if unhappily it becomes law, there is no longer any workable Constitution to keep the Congress within the limits of its constitutional powers. That's Congressman James Beck in the Congressional Record of 1933. And this ends Louis McFadden's comments as read for the record in the House of Representatives, the Congress of the United States. Now let's come up to current times. Make sure you're taking notes. Now, I'm giving this to you in this sequence. I'm giving you to, and make sure everybody got a copy of that, please. Yeah. Same thing? Yes, they're all same thing. Make sure everybody has a copy. Now, I'm going to read Tropicon's speech. Stand nearby, because I'm going to call you in a minute.
I got you. I'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to tell them.
Yeah, no, I want you to get another, because it's going to be it's important, because it's one of the issues that come up.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to read Tropicon's speech. Now, as you know, we read the Secret Treaty of Verona, and we read one of Louis McFadden's speeches on the House of Representatives, and that was of 1934, and he was referencing what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did in 1933. All right? And now we're going to read Tropicon's speech in 1993 in reference to the same matters. Are we clear?
Yes.
Now remember what we read in the Secret Treaty of Verona, and the reason I'm taking the time to read more complete information because I'm recognizing that a lot of people didn't follow up with homework. But you need to know why certain statements are made. But this is also to give you a more solid informational background as to the nature of the Moorish Divine and National Movement and its real cause of the redemption of your birthright. Because as many subject matters that we're talking about is essentially your estate, which is what they're creating all these T-bonds on and selling around the world. So as I'm reading these hypothecation issues, what a lot of the Asiatics don't know is that it's directly tied to you, and it is the foundation of what you've been calling all these years by virtue of your Negro leader preacher guys, racism, prejudice, and all your lynchings and everything else has actually been a genocide initiative under the Secret Treaty of Verona to both rob your estate and then eliminate the true heir or creditor, the true creditor. While others are claiming to be the creditors and the sovereigns, those who have made the claim are not. This is why Noble Drali set up the old Canaanite temple to bring the knowledge of your ancient forefathers back to you so that you can claim your estate. If you don't speak up, it is declared that you have abandoned your birthright. While you did not intentionally, the silence is tacit acquiescence. That's what they're using to claim that you have consented. And it's also what they're using to claim that you have abandoned your estate, all of which you have not. And the hypothecation instruments, the marriage certificate, the birth certificate, and the driver's license, is their claim that they're using to rob you and to triangulate the war machine against you from an abstract, then physical perspective. Constituting the hypothecation of your birthright, those three main instruments, not limited to them, but those are the three main instruments that are used to hypothecate both your estate, your body, your heirship. And so when you look at these instruments, understand how they're really used. But let's go on so that you can come from another angle to regain your lost estate on the physical plane, yet understanding it from a spiritual perspective and understanding that they're always dealing with both sides of the coin. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The abstract and the concrete at all times. And so the best way, not necessarily the best way, but a way to convince people who don't understand this stuff is to give you their own words so that you can stop being naive and think that they don't understand this. And that you can stop being naive and think that you got to convince them of who you are. And so that you can stop being naive and think that you need to convince them about you being a holder in due course of anything, because the whole reason why you're in this condition is because the secret treaty of Verona has been enforced on you for a couple hundred years that you've been calling racism and slavery. Your language has been wrong because you don't understand what's going on. The reason I'm being a little bit more thorough with this, even though it gets boring, is because you need to know what's coming from the mouths of the high priest who've been governing you as government, so that you can understand why Noble Drawleys did what he did. Why at the heart of the Divine National Movement he says, help me in my mission to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing our Constitution of the United States of North America. That document is a divine-oriented document built on divine law and nature's God. It is allodial in its character. It is not a democracy. The secret treaty of Verona and the operatives of the Knights, of the militia, of the Jesuit order, and Opus Dei is to overthrow this government. And that's what they've been doing. The fact that you didn't know that you're the real founders of the government, you stood by busy being black, thinking it belongs to the European. And then thinking that you were some Negro civil rights people that might be granted some Negro citizenship under the 14th Amendment, which misclassified you but also made you non-descendable. And then of course all of the false support information perpetrated by Negro agent preachers working for Rome under the 501c3 agreement with Skull and Bones member Lyndon Baines Johnson after they bumped Kennedy off, was to keep you under control and keep you marching in Negro circles, which also made you non-descendable. All of these principles are rooted in the secret treaty of Verona. You must know that to understand the operations of politics in North America, from North America, and imposed upon the civilized world. It is the root of all your economic, social, and political problems. Know it to be the truth. And thus, I speak the words of the high priests themselves so that you can see it is no mystery. Except that your Negro leader preacher guys took oaths in their different lodges not to reveal this information so that the three ruffians could bang you upside the head, England, Ireland, and France, led by the Jesuit order of the Dark Knights for the militia of the popes of Rome under the secret treaty of Verona in 1213, under Roman Emperor Innocent III, enforced by Thomas de Torquemada, i.e. the Spanish Inquisition against the Moors and the Jews, and you are them Moors and Jews. Do you understand? And the secret treaty of Verona is the foundation of all the secret societies of the dark side. Meaning the dark side and those in the light all got the same knowledge codified, but its use is of different purpose. Do you understand? So there's some that want to raise you, that's I-R, or I-A-I-S, right? E. And then there's some that want to raise you, and that's R-A-Z-E. And that's what you're suffering from, those who are raising you. R-A-Z-E. Are we clear? And this is why all of them use your Great Seal Pyramid, because that is the symbol of civilization on the earth, and they're claiming your estate, hoping that you don't wake up and claim your estate. Are we clear? So this is for you to be aware. Now, if you want to honor your mothers and fathers, you can. If you choose not to, that's fine too, but know you're going to get cooked. So the warning is out. All right? And it's no secret. It's not given to you in some allegorical story, some sign of symbol. It's told to you straight up. Take it as it is, because it is indeed the truth. Let's complete the triangle. United States of North America Speaker Republic Representative James Traficant Jr. of Ohio, addressing the House of Representatives, keep this in mind and in context with the Secret Treaty of Verona on the floor of Congress. And then Louis McFadden's speech in 1934 backed up Louis Traficant 1993 in reference to 1933 with Skull and Bones member Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and understanding the sequence, the operative sequence, and where you are today and why you must nationalize, because it's your only way out. Are we clear? Mr. Speaker, we are here now in Chapter 11, and members of Congress are official trustees. Official trustees. Official trustees. Presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future, and there are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. Take all these statements into qualification based on what you know is already in place. Are we clear? It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act of March the 9th, 1933, 48 Statute 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR 192, the 73rd Congress in session June the 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States government officials, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Exists today in name only. Exists today in name only. The receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers via the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, and all United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. See the Treaty of Verona taking place? See it in operation? The receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States, and this new form of government is known as a democracy. See where that came in? Before 1933, it did not exist. You see the activities of the Treaty of Verona? So how many people don't know when politicians are saying our democracy, they just reveal to you that they're knights for the popes of Rome to steal your birthright. See how important it is to know language? See how important it is to know history? See how easy it is to cast spells from the dark side of the priesthood and put the entire world to sleep? Now you understand what the Bible says? They deceived the whole world. Now you understand when it talked about these people not being able to buy or to sell without the mark or the number of the beast. Now you understand when the beast is devouring, waiting for the child to be born so it can devour. So we're coming from the abstract of the allegorical stories in the book of the Son and bringing it to the politics of the world in its operation. Are we clear? Breaking the mystery. But you must know how they think in order for you to know how to think. You know how they act in order for you to know how to proact as opposed to react. Are we clear? Thus Noble Drawley said, I want active Moors and not passive Moors. Are we clear? Now, the new form of government is known as a democracy, being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. And this act was instituted and established by transferring and or placing the office of the Secretary of the Treasury to that of the Governor of the International Monetary Fund. So you see, when the Inquisition Revenue Services, which is really disguised as the Internal Revenue Services, is really the Inquisition operations. Because the United States has no treasury. That's why you'll see the IRS put Department of the Treasury, because it's the Popes of Rome. Now you understand who you're paying taxes to? Are we clear? And that's one of the world's best kept secrets. But it's out, ain't it?
Yeah.
Did you have to take an oath of death?
Yeah.
Know you the truth, and the truth will set you free. And so now, that is done under Public Law 94-564, page 8, section HR 13955. And it reads in part, the United States Treasury Secretary of the Treasury receives no compensation for representing the United States. Why does he not receive compensation for representing the United States? 2 reasons. The United States is dissolved. It's bankrupt, and the office doesn't exist. He's a front to keep you in the mystery, to keep you in faith, blind faith, operating with the fiat that comes from blind faith, as opposed to true religion and the money, which is the gold and the silver coin. See? Say it again.
The scripture says the gold is mine and the silver is mine.
Mm-hmm.
I have on 1,000 hills.
Mm-hmm. All right. She just made another tape. All right, look. You can expect 2 or 3 more. We're listening all the way up. Now, also, after I read this, I'm going to have Sister Rosamariah, and I like to pick on her, so I call Rosamariah VPApublications.com, because she's so expensive that she's become the walking news for the nation, and highly appreciated. So when I call that, that's my little picking on her thing. That's in kind jest, though. But she has a very strong dispensation of information to share with you. So when she comes up and speaks, please take notes, please pay close attention to what she's saying, because it's going to be in the direction of some remedies to some degree. And then we're going to have interchange, all right?
Yes.
All right. Now, I'm not going to read all of Traficante's speech. I'm going to go into another part to show you the hypothecation. Then I'm going to bring up Rosamariah VPApublications.com, who hasn't had much rest. Because it is good, and we need the spirit of the mother to really, bring this egg together. Anyway, the Federal Reserve Act stipulated, and keep in mind when we're talking the Federal Reserve Act now, we're going back to Skull and Bones member Woodrow Wilson, 1913, who met with the representatives of the Jesuits, of the militia of the Jesuit Order of the Dark Knights, along with the European bankers of England, to carry out the Treaty of Verona in 1913 off Jekyll Island, off the state Georgia. Keep in mind, this counters Noble Drawley setting up the old Canaanite temple, 1913. All these are correlatives. All right? Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. And there was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title. Clear allodial title. clear allodial title. That's ALLODIAL. Title to property. Free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, quote unquote, stockholders, held legal title. The United States citizen, the U.S. citizen, quote unquote, tenant, franchisee, was registered as, quote unquote, a beneficiary of the trust. Beneficiary of the trust. Beneficiary of the trust. Via his or her birth certificate. Triangulation, you see? In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present, and future. You got that?
Yes. Yes.
Properties, assets, and labor of their quote-unquote subjects, the 14th Amendment
Right.
U.S. citizen,
Right.
to the Federal Reserve System. Go back to the divine warning by the prophet for the nations that was set forth before this even took place. Now you understand why he's a prophet.
Yes. Yes.
He said the 14th and 15th Amendment is not necessary for the salvation of my people and my citizens. He says, if you don't believe that the program I have for the redemption of my people and citizens is correct, go to those who know law. That's the highest level of civic instruction. How dare these fake representatives tell the people that the prophet did not teach civics? Islam.
If I could add on, in that statement, he specifically said, go to those who know law in the city hall.
Yes.
And they will be glad to render you a favorable reply.
And yes,
And
your government officials.
Yeah, and your government officials.
Yes.
Too. But if anybody ever doubted that, with those proclamations that came out at the beginning of this fiscal year, you know, that was just affirmative to that statement.
Yes.
You know,
And
that's
then
what-
know that they came out because we sent an international proclamation to the world governments.
Indeed.
And it put them on the spot.
Exactly.
Which, as Ras Mariah said, you know, this is why Hillary's speaking with the Moorish flag. Appealing to the governments. Why? Because that's the real American flag, and they're burning embassies of this fake government. So they're trying to appeal, and she has, here we go. Also,
No. This is the real one.
yes,
Look
now
at
this
that.
is the full-fledged
Off of the
in the
YouTube.
Benjamin Franklin room.
They just gave you a little piece of it down there. That's the Benjamin Franklin room, 8th floor.
In the White House.
In the White House, yes.
Wow.
Do you understand? Why? Because they are the surety holders of the estate of the Moorish Empire, because you were at the Maghrib al-Aqsa, Morocco, the most extreme west, the North Gate, and they've been the keepers of the North Gate. And now they're being exposed because the heirs of the estate, the true creditors and donors, are standing up, and you're speaking up. And so when they speak to the rest of the world, they got to look like they're not maintaining human trafficking. Are we clear? Also, this is another country that we have, we're trying to still trace its origin, where they got Noble Drawley's picture standing up. That's Noble Drawley's picture up there. And we got to figure out what country this is. But anyway, it says, every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess that unto us a prophet was born. We haven't found out what nation this is. but they're acknowledging Noble Drew off these shores. Also, this is the brothers, etc., from the south gate of the north gate. Mexicans, it says,
If you think.
if you think I'm illegal because I'm a Mexican, learn the true history because I'm in my homeland. All right?
There was another one that was
Yes.
earlier that said, on cover time, I believe it was North, South,
Yes, can
Central
you
America.
come up here, too?
Oh, no, I remember. It
Brothers and
said
sisters,
North,
The
South,
mic.
Central America.
reverse it because I want you to
Where's the
speak
mic?
to the camera. Brothers and sisters, yes, give her
Oh,
super
oh, the
duper
mic.
mic.
Oh, that mic.
Yeah, now give
Oh,
her
I
mic.
got you. Oh, I
Now,
got you.
don't start singing right now. Anyway,
You
know, don't play.
You know we're supposed to sing.
Oh, we are?
We're not together and just,
Oh, we
the
are?
whole nation won't even know. They don't know you sing, they don't know I sing. You said we was gonna do that one day.
all right. Anyway, first of all,
I got nothing else to do.
a lot of work, hold on just a minute, brother. A lot of work that's done around the country and a lot of the awakening for the people has been because she has stood up many sleepless nights with the help of her son, Michael.
Yes, yes.
Also, I'm going to come talk about him next week. Anyway, and I want to acknowledge appreciation for the work, for the sacrifice, etc. Stand up just for a minute, Michael. A lot of times, yes, a lot of times when you hear people running their mouth, you don't recognize who's really behind the scenes making a lot of stuff work. So I want to give her a hand of honor, give him a hand of honor. All right, in the house of Ram, hit it, sis.
Yeah, well, actually, you
Talk with
got
the
all
field.
yours in there. No, you
Yes.
can take them all, because I can
Yeah.
always print them all. No, the brother asked me, we're gonna be giving those away. Those are color prints on glossies, but you can go straight to YouTube, and all of those pictures, I will have uploaded on the site. Matter of fact,
You'll be able to pull them down.
yeah, you'll be able to pull them down and print them out yourself.
In the video, too.
On the video, when she was speaking, when Hillary Clinton was speaking, she mentioned it's a 60-minute video, go to YouTube and just type in Hillary Clinton on Morocco and choose the one that's 16 minutes because it starts from the beginning. And the reason I'm telling you that from the beginning, there's a majestic scene as they have the camera way back here in the room. And then as she comes in the room to sit down, and when they have it way back, you see all the flags. And then as the camera's coming in closer, you've seen it? It's very majestic. It's like, wow. And you look at the three Moroccan, the flags and the three star-spangled banners. And you realize, as Tarik said, that you can't talk international stuff without a national flag. And the rest of the world knows that the star-spangled banner is not a flag at all. And it's certainly not a national flag.
It's a trading banner.
It's a trading banner. So how's she going to come and talk to the international discussion without having a flag of the people? The flag of the people is the Moroccan flag, as has been stated for a long time by Taj. And what did the Prophet Noble Drew do? He came and said, take the flag out. But what did they do? Everybody says the Star-Spangled Banner is the flag. It's not. It's what they said it was, and they made the song, the Star-Spangled Banner. Anyway.
They've been usurping you.
But we've waking up now. And so know this.
Yes.
It's only because we Moors are waking up that all of this, we rise, they fall. Because the only reason they even survive is on our ignorance. So they survive off of our ignorance.
They live off our virtue.
They live off our virtue and our ignorance. To live off virtue and ignorance at the same time is real special, isn't it? And so it's time that, so now, and even with this picture of this flag, it's time for everyone to confess their own and worship, I call it worship, work their ship, right? Under their own vine and fig tree, for real. All of these things come into play and they come as a revelation. And that's one other thing. When you're reading Prophet Noble Drew Ali's work, because I was one of those, remember times I used to say, well, where are we getting this stuff at that he said? Where's the book that he said this? Because they're always quoting all this stuff. The reality was I always had the books of his work. It's in all the literature. It's just that it's spiritual. It's divine and national movement. So what happens is those things that you've already read doesn't come as a revelation to you until it's time for it to become a revelation to you.